Hi everyone, Logan from the World of Logan here, and today we are taking a deep dive into history. Straight from the source of Wikipedia, we are investigating Brothers Home, or aka the real life Squid Games. The Brothers Home was an internment camp, officially a welfare facility, located in Busan, South Korea during the 70s and the 80s. The camp was home to some of the worst human rights abuses in South Korea during the period of social purification, and has been nicknamed Korea's Auschwitz by various Korean media outlets. Background chapter. Throughout the 1950s, the Republic of Korea struggled to recover from the devastation of the Korean War. Welfare policies during this period were focused on the housing of orphans. They were seen as a stain to South Korea's national reputation. As the 1960s unfolded, Park Chung-hee's military junta commenced efforts to cleanse society of those who were seen as symbols of the poverty and disorder of cities. And these policies were expanded to cover the detention of General I don't know that word. Starting around 1960, major cities such as Seoul, these cities listed in blue here, I don't know the names of them or how to properly pronounce them, began the construction of the vagrant detention facility. A set of laws enacted in 1961 institutionalized the establishment of vagrant housing facilities. The Social Welfare Services Act of 70 made every vagrant between 18 and 65 eligible for social welfare services. In 1975, the South Korean Ministry of Home Affairs announced the Ministry of Home Affairs Directive No. 410, which required that word there and their local police departments to form vagrant patrol teams which would conduct regular patrols at least once a month. Ministry of Home Affairs District Directive No. 410 defined vagrants as those who prevent a healthy social order in cities and society. This ambiguous definition allowed local authorities to autonomously decide who was classified as a vagrant and who was not. Likewise, the city of Busan and its local police arrested and detained numerous people who were seen on the streets, including panhandlers, abandoned or orphaned children, and the disabled as the vagrants. In some cases, police took unattended children into custody without their parent or guardian's knowledge. The act of execution of duties by police officers of 1953 provided a legal basis for police forces to detain or transfer those who lacked supervision from an adequate supervisor and were in need of aid to police stations, hospitals, or other welfare facilities. Section 3 of the Act required officers to require the consent of the subjected individual before aid was given. In the case where police protection was to take place, officers were required to inform family members or other close associates of the aid recipient without delay. However, according to a witness account, these procedures were rarely followed. Arrested vagrants were distributed among 36 detention facilities across South Korea. Brothers Home was the biggest of these facilities, first established on July 20th, 1960, Gamandong in Busan. Brothers Home began business as an orphanage under the name Brothers Orphanage. As the orphanage expanded in size, it transformed into an accommodation centre for general vagrants. In the early 70s, in July 1975, Brothers Home signed a contract with the city of Busan and became its official vagrant detention facilities. One of them, anyway. Subsequently, Brothers Home relocated to that city there. This crackdown on vagrancy was intensified as rebranding efforts were taking place by the South Korean government in preparation for the 1986 Asian Games and the 1988 Seoul Olympics. On April 10, 1981, upon receiving a report from Military Security Command on the status of panhandling among disabled citizens, then President Chun Doo-hwan ordered Prime Minister Nam Duk-woo to crack down on begging and take protective measures for vagrants. On October 6th, Chun ordered Nam to make sure no panhandlers are on the streets of Seoul before the 1988 Olympics. Wow, there is a lot on this one. Here it is. In August 1982, a man with the surname Kang submitted a petition asking the government and police to investigate his brother's mistreatment while held at Brothers Home. The case was handled by the police station, Busan Bukbu Police Station, I don't know what that is, which arranged a meeting between Kang and Park In-gyun, who was director of the centre. Park took legal action against Kang for false accusation, and Kang was sentenced to 8 months in prison on December 23rd, 1982. In December 1986, Kim Yong-won, or one or the other, a prosecutor from the District Prosecutor's Office of Ulsan, I don't know, set an investigation after hearing rumours from a local hunter that a group of labourers were logging in a nearby mountain after being assaulted by guards armed with clubs. Kim discovered that the workshop, which was located on a mountain in Ulja County, Ulsan, was operating under orders from Park In-gwen, from Park, director of Brothers Home. Kim reckoned that Park was subjecting inmates brought from Brothers to forced labour and launched a full-scale search and seizure investigation into the workshop of the centre's main facility in Busan. On January 16, 1987, the investigation, which included the interviews of more than 100 inmates, guards, and executives of the centre, concluded that the centre's inmates, most of whom were sound mind, had been involuntarily transported and detained by the centre, where they were subjected to forced unpaid labour. A bank receipt indicating a deposit of 2 billion won, approximately 10.6 million in 2025 US dollars, was also found in the safe in the director's office. Following the investigation by the prosecution service, National Assembly members of the New Korean Democratic Party subsequently conducted an independent investigation into Brothers. The party published its first report on the investigation on February 4th, 1987. It concluded that of the 3,975 inmates who were present at the centre in 1986, 3,111 had been brought in by police and 208 by county officials. From 2022 to 2024, the South Korean Truth and Recollection Commission conducted a series of 3 investigations into the incident. beatings, and torture. Subsequent investigation into the incident revealed that the inmates at Brothers' Home were subjected to serious violations of human rights, including arbitrary detention, enforced labour, torture, and not very nice things. I shall be censoring that out. The centre was administered with an army-like chain of command to reduce administrative costs. One inmate was chosen as the commander of the facility, working directly under Director Park. Under the commander, 120 veterans were grouped together into a single residence as one platoon. Each platoon had a leader, general secretary, and team leaders, and all of whom were selected inmates. Inmates were also subjected to collective punishment. In some cases, the entire platoon would be beaten or tortured over the mistake of a single member. Widespread torture was common. Inmates were often forced to keep painful and exhausting postures for prolonged periods and were beaten when they failed to stay still. In 2020, the Cookman Ilbo reported accounts of a former inmate who claimed that Director Park physically abused inmates himself and kept handcuffs in oak clubs in the director's office. He further claimed that he had heard rumours about 40 to 50 inmates in Brothers' Home that were killed directly by Park himself. Children and adolescents of Brothers often became victims of violence and platoon officers. A small number of victims, labelled as Tongti, that word there, became the primary victims of homosexual violence. Various testimonies have reported that Brothers' Home fed its inmate antipsychotics as a form of chemical restraint. Purchase records from the centre have revealed that Brothers purchased 250,000 tablets of chlorpromazine, along with a series of other antipsychotics such as haloperidol, flurazepam, carbamazepine, and carbamazepine. In 1986 alone. In 1987, the city of Busan denied the accusations, explaining that the drugs were over-the-counter drugs that were purchased for medical reasons only. The 1987 New Korean Democratic Party investigation reports estimated that, based on records from the centre, a total of 513 people died inside Brothers from July 5th, 1975 to July 7th, 1987. In 2014, an additional 38 victims were found to have died in the centre from 86 to its decommission in 88, increasing the number to over 551. In 2016, a DW News article reported that a minimum of 516 people died over the course of 20 years at Brothers' Home. The 2022 Truth and Reconciliation Commission investigation reported that, based on the comprehensive analysis, including all newly discovered death records from 1975 to 1988, a total of 657 people had died in the centre. The bodies of the dead inmates were buried in secret, cremated and buried in public cemeteries, or sold to nearby hospitals. Adoption and human trafficking. From the mid to late 20th century, about 200,000 South Korean children, mostly girls, were sent abroad for adoption. It is now believed that they constitute the largest diasporic adoptee population in the world. An investigation by the Associated Press discovered that direct evidence of that brothers' home organised the adoption of 19 children from 1979 to 1986. The AP further revealed that 6 U.S. adoption agencies, Holt International, Children's Home Society of Minnesota, Dillon International, Children's Home Society of California, Catholic Social Services, and Spence Chapin had received adoptees from brothers. Oh, this is a mouthful. The European countries included Belgium, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, and Denmark. Most of the Korean girls were not real orphans and had living biological parents, but their status was intentionally faked to show that they were orphans and put on adoption in foreign countries for money. The Korean Welfare Services, Eastern Social Welfare Society, Korea Social Service, and Holt Children's Services were the adoption agencies involving the trafficking of the girls. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission began investigating the scandal in 2022. So about 3 years ago then. The military leaders were linked to the agency's board members, and they wanted to establish closer links with the West and decrease South Korea's population. South Korea's Korean Broadcasting System reported on the case of the Korean girl Kim Yuri, who was taken away from her biological parents and adopted to a French couple, where she was and by her French adopted father. Across Australia, Europe, and the United States, the majority female Korean adoptees asked for an investigation from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission into the child trafficking scandal. Holt Children's Service was sued by a Korean adoptee in the US for compensation. Aftermath. Trial of Park. Park was eventually sentenced to 2.5 years in prison, not for the human rights abuses at Brothers, but for embezzlement and corruption. Involvement of the Protestant Church. Survivors of Brothers' Home have alleged close cooperation between the camp and the Protestant Church. One former inmate reported being forced to perform in Christian plays for local and international guests and given Easter eggs as reward. Not bad reward that, but bad what they were doing. Another was sent to camp by a Christian missionary. Another survivor described the church and the camp as a business operation run by Pastor Lim Young-soon and Director Park In-gyun. I think that's how you say it, In-gyun. With children forced to work and run an on-premises Korean adoption operation, including writing letters soliciting donations from families who have adopted children in the past. Some of the adoption partners abroad were also part of the Christian organizations. According to Shin Yi-gyeon, a representative of the Korea Christian newspaper, Park In-gyun was a senior presbyter of a church belonging to the General Assembly of Presbyterian Church in Korea. Shin further claimed that the human rights violations of brother Christian organizations in Busan, such as the Busan National Council of Churches and the Busan YMCA, neglected to reveal them. Footnotes. South Korean law during this time defined vagrants as beggars, gum sellers, or street hustlers without a fixed residence. Wanders around the places where many people gather or pass by, such as tourist spots, hospitality establishments, train stations, bus stops, or residential areas, and harass passersby by begging or forcefully selling items. In July 2003, the Social Welfare Services Act was reformed to legislate the classification of the homeless as separate from the vagrants. In 2011, the Ministry of Health and Welfare removed the term vagrant entirely from South Korean law. This requirement stated in Section 3 was removed when the Act was amended in 1981. On January 15, 1987, just a day before the investigation, police had announced the death of activist Park Jong-chul, which would later rekindle the June democratic struggle. So, that was the story of Brothers Home. Terrible, isn't it? It's absolutely terrible what they did there. But honestly, I'm glad that they're shut down now. I wonder if they're still doing investigations into Brothers Home. The real life Squid Games, apparently. But now I will show you pictures from inside Brothers Home now. Ruined pictures that have been taken now. Give me a minute. I will pause the video now. So there's this video here. Picture. This is the video I found. Shout out to @Jacka Parker. So these are some images from the Brothers Home in South Korea. And also it reminds me of Netflix's Squid Games. It looks like a place where... That's creepy. That looks like something out of Among Us. Looks like the squid... It looks like It looks childish. That's all for this video, guys. I do hope you enjoyed that interesting piece of knowledge that's now engraved in your brains. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the World of Logan channel. I will see you all next time. Bye!